welcome to a brand new episode of Coming Distractions brought to you by the Nerdpocalypse podcast. I'm your host, Jay. I'm here with my co-host, Micah.
Hey.
All right, guys, we're back. So we're in a way different environment. We're at Micah's house, actually. So we're not in studio because we just got back from seeing Avengers Infinity War. Just keep in mind this review is not going to contain any spoilers, so if you're really excited about the movie and you don't want it spoiled for you, don't worry, we're not going to. Before we get into it, Micah, what are your general thoughts, and then we'll kind of get into a little bit more of the details.
My general thoughts are, yeah, the movie's great. They pulled off what they said they were going to do. This is the culmination of a decade's worth of movies. I was very, very impressed. I mean, by now we've seen these things. This is like the 19th or 20th Marvel movie.
Right.
So, you know, performances, everyone knows who they are.
Right. You're not getting anything like majorly different than what you've gotten.
Right. Right. So if you're a fan of the Marvel movies, obviously you are going to like this. And if for whatever reason you don't care for them, you know, this isn't for you. This is a love letter to all of the people who meticulously watch these movies and pick apart little things. And this feels like a celebration of that. And it takes you on an emotional journey. I mean, it kind of does.
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
Look, this movie is tremendous. It's the longest Marvel movie. I didn't check my watch once, and that says something. And yeah, go. I mean, this for me as a comic book movie, this is a 5 out of 5. As a standalone movie, you know, if you're not fully invested into this Marvel experiment, I mean, it's not really an experiment anymore.
It's proven.
Yeah, it's proven. If you're not invested in it, it's still a good movie. I would probably give it like a 4 out of 5 if you're not like if you're going in fresh,
which is crazy.
Yeah, which is crazy. Go back and watch, you know, the other 18 movies. But yeah, man, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was they did what they said they were going to do.
Yeah. So for me, look, I'm a huge Marvel fan. Both of us are, obviously. But yeah, look, my best advice to anyone seeing this, and then I'll get into my thoughts on it. My best advice is to leave all of your theories and your expectations at the door. The best way to enjoy this movie is to just go, hey, I'm into this stuff, and I'm just going to go watch it. And that's not to undersell it or try to like oversell it. And no, I mean, literally just go in and experience it as they intended. The Russo brothers obviously did previously Civil War and Winter Soldier. Look, they nailed it. Like, they super nailed it. Everyone in this movie gets a shot. Everyone gets a moment where you're just like, oh, there's Spider-Man, like doing, and not just like there's Spider-Man showing up, like a big moment from that character, right? Like everyone has those moments, and it's really great. It's fun. Like, again, what Micah said, it's an emotional roller coaster. You really get to learn about Thanos, which is really important. Like, it's really a Thanos film. I felt like it's like a Thanos origin film.
Yeah, it is. And Josh Brolin does a very good job of conveying the menace and well, I don't want to talk too much about Thanos, but
right.
Thanos, you see a lot more of Thanos' point of view on things than you do other Marvel villains. Like, we always have this big thing of, well, who's the best Marvel villain? Because they have kind of a villain problem, right? And I know we say this every movie, but every movie they keep getting better.
He's the best one.
He's the best one.
He is. And look, and that says a lot because I thought Killmonger was the best after Black Panther.
Yeah.
And he was. Like, at that point, yeah, he was. But what makes Thanos work so well, and it's the same thing that ultimately made Killmonger work so well and ultimately made Loki work so well, was that you understood them. Like, they weren't, I wouldn't necessarily use the term sympathetic. I'm not sympathetic to Thanos' perspective,
right,
but I get it. And that, to me, was a really big thing of just this idea of, okay, I might not agree with what your end goal is here, but I certainly go, this guy's making a lot of points that are understandable.
Your logic is fine. Your
execution,
your execution has a bit of a. I have a bit of an issue.
Right, exactly. So in a lot of ways, this is a Thanos story, and that's a really super dope perspective, right? Because you would think it would just be heroes, and then they've got to fight this generic bad guy. But like, since Avengers 1 ended, and you got that stinger of Thanos turning around and smiling at the camera, you haven't really seen a lot from Thanos. He shows up in Guardians, but there's 1 or 2 lines where people talk about him, and it's not a lot. Yeah, it was worth it. Like, that 10 years of building to that point was worth it. And you really got to see, like, there's no shying away. Like, oh, Thanos shows up in the 3rd act. Nah, dude. No, he's right out front very early in the movie, and he is a consistent force in the film.
The film sets a tone in the very beginning. And it's like, oh, okay, we're here. Like, we're doing this. Like,
right, because, that's true. He shows up in the first 2 minutes.
Right. There's no introductions. There's no... if there is a flaw in this movie, it feels like that there's no first act.
No, it feels like it just hits. Like, the movie hits the ground running and never really slow down.
Yeah. It's... Now, that's not to say that the film isn't paced properly.
No.
It is, which is incredible given the amount of action scenes that are in the film. But if you have not seen this before, or any of these movies before, you might want to brush up on a couple, or read a wiki.
Yeah.
Because there's no hand-holding. There's no, hey, this is this character, and this is what they do. No, this movie goes in assuming you know what's going on. And it doesn't dumb things down for you.
No,
but it doesn't hold your hand either.
No, not at all. I do want to talk about like this idea of the character juggling, which I think is a really big part of this, right? I think it's what helps the movie work the best. You know, they have this whole thing about back when Avengers was about to come out. Can they pull this off? Can they juggle like the fantastic sort of world of Thor with the tech world of Iron Man with this like patriotic, you know, guy in American flag and Captain America? Like, how are they going to bring all together? Yeah, they did, and it was incredible, and it was a big deal. That seems like easy work compared to what they pull off in this one. Yeah. Because you got to remember, you've got the Earthbound Avengers, then you've got Thor who's in space, and Hulk who's in space, and the Guardians, and
the Wakandans.
The Wakandans, you've got Doctor Strange, you're like that part of the universe. All of that, then you have Thanos and like all of his stuff going on.
Because it's not just, hey, here are the A+ players, so to speak. Like, no, this is this person and their sidekick, and then there's this person and their sidekick. Yeah. And like there are A and B characters from they take the Iron Man characters, you know, A, B, and C listers, and they're in this movie. Yeah. And they take the Captain America characters, A, B, and C, and they put them in this movie, and they do that for every movie.
Everybody everyone gets a turn. And look, again, I don't want to spoil anything. We'll do a spoiler talk, I'm sure, on the show. But like the idea of being able to balance all of that, meanwhile, you know, giving Thanos a real story. Because he has a real story. He doesn't just show up and he's like, I'm the bad guy, and then they just go and they just punch him for 2 hours. No, his story, like they show background of him. And like you really understand why he does these things. I mean, the motivation is really powerful for him.
He's not Ultron, where it's just like, you know what? You guys are bad, so I got to destroy the planet.
Right,
like,
exactly. He's not. They could have easily done that to just make him easy and just fit him in. Right? But I think they learned that lesson. And I will say this. Everyone's like, oh, you know, who's going to die? Who's not going to die? Da, 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 da. Again, leave your expectations and your theories. Just leave them at the door, man. Just go watch the movie. But I will say this, and this will be my last comment around anything like that. This is their Empire Strikes Back. That's what it is. That's what it is to me. Like, Avengers, the first Avengers feels like, you know, Star Wars A New Hope. This is Empire, and then I assume what's coming after it is Return of the Jedi without the teddy bear picture. But like that's what it feels like. So it's serious. There are things that happen that have weight, real weight.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, okay. Like, and things we were watching, we had no idea those things were going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's what was really cool.
Yeah. Like I was surprised. And like we look at this stuff, right? Like
Constantly.
Right, all the time, right? We have to. I was surprised. There were things that happened in this movie that just no report on whatsoever.
No. And specifically, there is a thing that happens in this movie, and you're like, I am nerd. Anyone talk about this? And it is super cool that they were able to pull that off in an age of everything gets thrown out there. Yep. They were still able to keep. There's a number of secrets and things that you don't see coming.
Yeah.
And it's cool, man. Like, again, as a person who is into these movies, you are going to have a blast. Yep. And even if you go in completely raw and don't understand like the minutia, or like you just kind of casually watch the movies and you're just like, I don't know, who's that guy? You know, that sort of thing, you're still going to have a great time. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. It's still a fun movie. It really is. Yeah. Look, my personal favorites, like everyone was great. But so one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that the characters don't feel wildly different from their solo movies as they do here, right? You know, even though, you know, Thor came from Ragnarok, and that's a straight comedy for the most part, he doesn't feel wildly different in this movie. But, you know, he still fits, and that character still works in that world, right?
Yeah, he feels like he still feels like the Thor that ended Ragnarok,
right?
But you know, this is a different tone,
right?
And that Thor took on this tone. I mean, it's almost as if, like, because the last comic book team up movie that I saw felt very Frankenstein, even though it was written by a bunch of different people.
Weird.
We're not here to talk about those. We're here to talk about this one. And yeah, this one's great, man.
It's, look, again, I loved it. It's a 5 out of 5 for me. I think that you're the same.
Yeah, man. This is a love letter to the fans. This is a big thank you to them. And
all the billions of dollars that made them.
Yeah, right. And this train, you know, this train ain't stopping anytime soon, man. Look, I'll go on record. I thought people were going to get superhero fatigue years ago. I really did. This thing ain't going nowhere.
Not for Marvel, at least.
No.
I don't know if it's going to last for everybody else, but not for Disney. Disney seems like they have the formula and they got it down. And the thing is, it doesn't feel repetitive. That's what's amazing. Like, by the 20th movie, you'd be like,
for me, it doesn't feel repetitive. A lot of people who are detractors of this franchise,
sure,
they feel that it's repetitive. And again, I think they confuse repetitiveness for a proven formula. You know, like movies have, you know, first, second, third arcs, and they generally go the same arc, right, but they're not repetitive. First of all, this doesn't do that.
No, it really doesn't feel, like you mentioned earlier, it really doesn't feel like Act 1, 2, and 3.
It feels like Act 2, Act 3.
Yeah, it does. Well, that's a comic, right? Comics are all second act.
Yeah.
They're all second act. And I think they certainly have figured that out in this movie because, again, the movie doesn't start with, back in my day. No, it's just like, boom, and we are in the story.
Right.
And even in the way that it starts, again, I don't want to spoil anything, even in the way the film starts is very different than other Marvel movies.
Yeah.
So, because of that, you are really jumping into the second act. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a second act. It's 2, 2, 3. That's what it is. Yeah, it's super wild. And the nice thing is, 3 is a definitive 3.
Yeah.
It's a definitive 3. So you're not like, no, you're just like, this is clearly the end of that story.
Yeah.
And look, this doesn't really spoil anything. It's just kind of an interesting thing at the end. It doesn't say Avengers will be back. It says Thanos will return, which is really proving that it is really his movie. It's not the Avengers movie. They're in it, but like they're just the guys he kicks the shit out of for 2 hours,
right.
And that's really a different perspective than we've seen. So again, 5 out of 5. It's awesome. If you're a Marvel fan, you're gonna love it. Like you're just gonna love it. If you're a comic book movie fan, you're gonna love it. Just sit back and have a blast, man, because it is fantastic.
Yep.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.
See you.
You're watching the Nerdpocalypse YouTube channel. Make sure you click that button to subscribe and check out our weekly podcast where we talk about movie, TV, news, tech, and weird stories from around the internet.